This thing is massive and crazy and awesome. So we've got this tempered glass side panel that you just take these screws right here and it's got little lips on the side. You can just grab them and kind of just pull it off. The bottom feels like you're giving it a little too much force, but don't worry. It just comes off, and it's a pretty heavy door. And inside you can see the full cover for the power supply, so you can have the world's longest power supply in here for don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure there might be one out there that is too long, but mine definitely is not. You've got mounting bays right here for the SSDs. You can install 3 drives in the back right here. So there's 3 hard drive slots for 3.5s or 2.5s. And optionally, you can mount more hard drives at the bottom down here. I'm fairly new to PC building, and I have not done a water-cooled setup yet, but this is where you would mount. You could take this out, and you could mount your pump in here if you have a custom water-cool kit. But it's got holes here and then here as well, or you can just take this out. And then there's brackets to mount the reservoir, which I'm not going to be using a reservoir. I'll just be using air. And speaking of air, you've got 3 140s here, so 2 of them are fully showing. And then you've got one that's like halfway showing down here. And then you've got a 140 fan up here. You can mount 2 120s or 2 140s at the bottom of the case, and you can mount 3 140s or 3 120s at the top. The CPU cooler limitation is 185 millimeters. You could mount a 360 radiator here, or a 360 radiator here, and then all the smaller sizes in between, including a 120 back here. So you have 2 fans, 3 fans, 3 fans, 1 fan. So a total of 9 fans inside this computer. Something that I think is really unique is the top of this case is glass. There's no air that's going to go in or out of it, but optionally you can replace it. As you can see, this comes off. And with the included accessories and screws, you would put this in there, and then you would screw it down, and you'd have a filter to go on top of it. And something truly awesome about this is when you press this button and pop this off, you can easily get to all your components that are inside your computer. So you could plug in your CPU power, or you could plug in a fan for the CPU that you may have forgotten to plug in. You can plug this stuff in and do stuff, and then when you're done, you just pop this back on top and press it down, and it's secure. Let's take a look at the other side of it. All right, now let's take this panel off as well. That's a pretty heavy door. And as you can see, you've got access to everything else. You've got your crazy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 PWM fans. And all you need is a 4-pin PWM header on your motherboard, and all 9 of your fans are going to be controlled by this guy. And then you plug this into one of your SATA ports for power. You've got cable management here, and then in here we've got all the stuff for like the USB 3.0, the HD audio, the power buttons. There's 2 different versions available. There's this one that comes with all black fans, and then there's a model that has the RGB fans from Fractal Design instead of the black ones. So if you're not a fan of things lighting up and crazy and you want a sleek build with nothing too fancy, you can get the all black version. But I'm going to go ahead and install these 140 millimeter fans inside the case. You've got 2.5 millimeter hard drive mounts here. And remember, you've got 2 here, you've got 3 that you can put on the other side, you've got 3 more you can put here, or 3.5s here. So you could fill all 3 of those up with some spinning disks and have tons of storage and have some little spinning laptop hard drive disks here, or some SSDs and RAID. You got your fan right here that you would plug into that, and you plug all your other fans into this. I love how it's just basically a shell, a skeleton, and you have access to everything. And the top is definitely my favorite thing about this case. It's so annoying having a huge air cooler on your case and not having access to your CPU power and having to plug that in before placing the motherboard fully in your case because you can't get your hands in there. You can get your hands in there by just simply pressing this button and popping the top off the case. It's that easy. This is for your power supply. Basically, you just unscrew these. This will come off. You bolt this to your power supply, and then you push it in, and you hand tighten those. You've got vertical mount support for GPUs here, so 2 card length. And then you've got plenty of them here, so you can run an SLI setup if you want to. And then of course your 140 fan. This will be filled in with your motherboard IO ports. This is an all glass front, so the air will come in through the sides here and the sides there. There is a filter here that you can take out on both sides. If you replace the top glass with airflow, say you want air to exhaust out of your case through the top, you can go ahead and use this as a filter. And as far as I'm aware, it's good to have more intake than you have exhaust. So having 3 fans blowing air in and just a 1 huge fan in the back blowing air out is better than having 3 more fans at the top blowing air out, because it's going to be taking the cold air from these fans and it's going to go straight out the top. If you have a glass top on it, that air is going to be forced to go from this to that and from this to that. So from what I've been told is it's just better to have it like that. It looks like standoffs may have been installed. Yes, standoffs are installed already. You can take those out if you need to. There is a filter at the bottom here. So if you do put fans at the bottom to blow air up, or you have the power supply, for example, in taking air from the bottom and putting it out the back, that will be filtered. And with some force, the front, which is quite heavy itself, comes off. And unlike the Meshify C with the little light here, you can see the light here for power and hard drive activity. And you can see those fans, so you can easily swap them out and put the light up ones in there. But I love how just every last possible spot for air to be brought into the case is filled in by these fans. And then you've got the fan cords going in here. And then we've got our filters here that just come out. These are the side filters I was talking about, where you can clean these out, and then that way it allows more airflow if these get clogged with dust over time. So it's that easy. You just pop the front off like I did, and then you pull these out, blow them out, clean them off, and then you put them back in. And boom, it's back on. It looks awesome. It really does. All right, the next step is to take my existing computer and put it in here. All right, I'll be back. And we're back. And I have my Meshify C lined up exactly with the front of the new Vision 2. And then look at the distance. It's incredible. Lined up almost perfectly. And look at all that extra room back there. So much extra room to build stuff in. Seriously, I still love the Meshify C. And actually, we're going to do a Ryzen build for my wife using this. And she wants some light up fans and stuff in it. But we're going to use this case. This case will still be used for something because I don't want to see it go to waste. It's a perfectly good case with filters on the bottom, the front, and the top. So still a perfectly good case. But we're moving on to the newer, bigger, and better case. I present to you my completed build. So one thing you're going to notice if you have a Meshify C or you're familiar with the Meshify C is I have so much room in the front for activities. Before, my graphics card nearly touched my front fans. I literally had about a finger's space between the front fan and there. There is so much more room inside this case. Let me show you. Look at that. Look at that. Now, I haven't dove into water cooling yet. That's for like a fancy pump, not an all-in-one, but an actual like hard line or soft tubing water pump flowing throughout all that stuff. But there it is. So much room for things. Building inside this thing is an absolute dream. With the Meshify C and a Noctua huge air cooler in the front, this is the smaller one that I did a video on. But with the bigger NHD 15, that one right there, there just wasn't any room to work around. Pretend the side panel is on, right? Pretend it's on, press the button, and pull this out. Super freaking simple. And again, the 8-pin power connector for the CPU. Oh, I didn't plug it in all the way, but I don't want to take my cooler off and and everything out to get to it. So, boom, just make sure it's nice and fit and snug and secure. Really, really nice. And if you want instead, you can go ahead and take off this little mounting thing that's just outside of your view. You can see it right here. It just goes around. And then you can add 3 exhaust fans on the top Let's go ahead and put it back together. I've been wanting to do this the last couple weeks. Check this out. Oh my gosh. So much better. One day I want to get an all-in-one that lights up, or a different cooler that lights up or something. I don't know. I like candy. I like colorful things. Great cooler, but man, I have an Asus board, Asus everything, and these fans that come with it are Asus Aura compatible. But I can't use them because my motherboard only has a 4-pin RGB header, and the lights use a 3-pin RGB header. But if you look in my case, I've got the RGB controller right there. I can pop the top off real quick and literally press the button while my system's on and change the lights and put the top back on it, and it's nothing to do that until I get a new motherboard. Also, the reason I need to get a new motherboard, this beautiful case has a Type-C connection, but my motherboard doesn't have that type of connector, so I can't plug it in and I can't use it. So I'm definitely going to be upgrading to a much better Asus board that has a Type-C connector, so I can plug in that connector that's at the bottom of the case that's not plugged in, and use a Type-C port on the front of my case. So headphone, microphone, a recessed reset button. I love it so much. I use Astro A50s. I put my base on top of my case, and sometimes when I go to put my headset on it, it hit the reset button on my Meshify C. See? Like, sticks out. I put my headset on there, and the base would make contact with the reset button, and boom, my system's rebooting. But on this one, it's recessed. You have to purposefully push your finger in there, which is easy to do, but it's not going to happen by accident, which is great. I love the redesign of the reset button. You've also got your power button, which has a very nice light that I like better than the Meshify C. The Meshify C had a subtle blue light when there's hard drive activity would flash, but it was also the systems turned on solid blue but flash when there's hard drive activity. This lights up when it's powered on, and then a light on the front here flashes when there's hard drive activity, and it's much more pronounced and easier to see. I love it. Then you have two classic USB 2.0 ports, so if you're using like an Xbox One or a PlayStation 4 controller adapter and you don't need high-speed USB 3.0, you can go ahead and plug it into the front here. Some older USB devices don't work very well inside a USB 3.0 port, so it's nice that they also included 2.0. And then you've got two USB 3 here in the front. All right, last piece before we finish up this video. Let's get this off. And right before we turn it on, I do want to talk about one other thing. So this has a grill here to prevent dust. And just in the last couple weeks alone, check this out. There's a very long filter in the bottom that you saw initially. I don't know how well that's going to pick up on camera, but that picked up quite a bit of dust. So let's go ahead and clean this out before we put it back in there. I think that shows up pretty well on the camera. A quick blow job later, and it is cleaned out. So nice and clean filter. Whew, you can see the dust. And then let's do this one. All right, quick blow, and this one's looking much better too. And you won't ever get mixed up on what side to go on because this has the LED cut out. And it goes right there on that LED. Don't be scared to give her a little force, and she goes together just fine. All right, moment of truth. Let's press this power button. And let's see it light up. Asus boards do this. They power up and then shut down and then power back on. So there we go. I don't have my fans connected to the thing that comes with the case. I have them connected directly to my motherboard the 3 in the front go to one header, and then the one in the back goes to another? That's because I like to use Fan Expert, which is an ASUS software for my board, and I can control my fans on the fly. One thing about these fans are they look beautiful. I absolutely love them. That's why I'm still have them in my case. If you're trying to decide whether you want to get the blacked out version with no lights, say you don't have anything in your computer that lights up, you don't want your computer to light up, get the black one. But if you ever feel like you want to have RGB lights inside your case, please do yourself a huge favor and just go with the one that comes with the RGB fans already installed. Because this bottom fan, you've got to take out a bracket on the bottom where the water pump sits on or whatever. And underneath that, you could put 2 more fans. But that's also how you install the bottom fan. And the bottom fan gave me trouble with the 2 screws that are in each corner. They literally are at the very bottom of each corner, and it's so hard to get a screwdriver in there because it's at an angle and you feel like you're going to strip a screw. And it's not a pleasant experience trying to install the bottom fan. So once I got these in, I knew I was never going to change them because of how difficult that bottom fan was. But also, I really, really like the look of them. They look awesome. They are not like super quiet like the Noctua fans are. They make an audible sound, and I'm not a fan expert by any means, but these fans sound like they have bearings, and you can sometimes hear them. It's got like a hum or a vibrating kind of bass sound, and it does make the case vibrate. I mean, just the smallest amount. It's almost like a hard drive. You know, like you can feel a hard drive spinning. It's bearable because I still have them in there weeks later, and I use Astro headsets most of the time. When I'm not using a headset, it's not loud enough that it bothers me. But these fans are not quiet like the Noctua fans are. But I really, really like them, and that's why they're still in there. And that's why they're going to stay in there. They look amazing, and I don't want to go to some plain Jane lights when I have these nice light up lights. And then when I get a new Asus board and I can use the Asus Aura software to sync my fans with my graphics card and with my RAM. And if I ever get an Asus Aura all-in-one or an Asus Aura fan cooler by Scythe, and I get some RGB strips for the bottom of the case to light the inside of the case up, all that will sync together with one piece of software. All the lights will be nice and even and smooth. So I really, really love these fans. And that looks so nice. Much better without it in. And there's no more dust in the front because I blew that out. That was a couple weeks worth of dust. And it came out nice and easy. No problems at all. And it looks a lot better. It's cleaner and no more stuff on the glass. I love it. This case is so nice. And I can't wait to upgrade my motherboard and be able to use that Type-C port at the top, have a Type-C port at the back, and have a 3-pin RGB header and a 4-pin RGB header. That about wraps it up. Thank you, Fractal Design, very much for sending me this case and letting me share my thoughts. As someone who just uses air cooling for the time being, I really do miss the much shorter aspect of the Meshify C. I think it looks cleaner, and the fans are closer to my graphics card and to my CPU cooler, so I feel like maybe it gets more air with it being closer to the fans, but at the same time, these fans are fast, and air can't go out the top, and barely anything gets out of the bottom. You can have an intake on the bottom, so it forces it to go from here to the back of the case. So I don't think it's that bad, and I really, really love the case. I love having 3 140mm fans in the front and then the big old 140 in the back. On the Meshify C, you can only have 120 in the back, 2 140s or 3 120s in the front. With the Meshify C, that hard drive tray was right there, and it was blocking the air from going anywhere. So only that top portion was visible. This gets much more airflow than the Meshify C, in my opinion. I love the case. I highly recommend it. I'll have a link in the description below. I'm going to go ahead and connect this back to my monitor and play some video games and edit some videos. This is What Would Josh Do? And I'm out.